We are less than a week from opening day, and the final decisions are beginning to be made regarding the Phillies roster. While JT Realmuto has the inside track on remaining the starting catcher for this Phillies baseball team, there has to be a discussion about the future and the outlook for his backup spot this season. It does appear that Garrett Stubbs will be sent down to the minor leagues, paving the path for Rafael Marchan to be the primary backup catcher for this Phillies team. I want to break down the implication of this, why this shouldn't be such a surprise up front, and kind of the overall future outlook. This is a big year for JT Realmuto as he is on the north side of 30, obviously progressing to the later stage of his career. We do know the track record for catchers tends to be not that strong on the north side of 30, and of course coming off a down season in which he dealt with injuries last year. So want to break down the outlook from here, what this all means, but before I dive fully into things, do want to remind you guys, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Now is the perfect time to be a part of the Phillies Digest family as we are just ahead of the season kicking off and excited to hit another gear. To start off with the news of today, we get this from Matt here, as well as the team officially saying Phillies option Garrett Stubbs to AAA. Rafael Marchan will be the backup catcher. So I dropped on here a couple days ago speaking about this looming decision the organization needed to make, and not a huge surprise here. The driving force of this and the most noteworthy part is Marchán was out of options, meaning he could not be sent down to the minors without other organizations having a chance to claim him here, and that is something the Phillies clearly were interested in preventing. This now clears the path for Marchán to be the primary backup catcher for this team. We did see him last year. He looked pretty strong in the major league level. For him specifically as a player, it has not been a question of his talent or his production. It has been availability that has been the biggest red flag, as this is a guy who's dealt with injuries throughout his entire time in the minors and really had the entirety of his professional career to this point. Now, to give a little more intel on it, do want to refer to Crossing Broad, who our friend Luke Arcani, my co-host on the channel, writes for. This specific passage written by Kevin Kincaid here, but he starts off saying, Marchán is out of options, so he starts the season backing up JT Realmuto while Stubbs goes down to Lehigh Valley. Marchán turned 26 last month and got some run with the Phillies in 2024, playing 17 games in a backup platoon with Realmuto injured and on the shelf. He slashed .295, .354, and .549 in 56 plate appearances, and was sent back to the Iron Pigs in July when Realmuto returned. To continue on, the Marchán versus Stubbs thing became a hot button issue on social media in 2024. Everybody had an opinion on this. Stubbs became the target of fan ire for a few reasons, with the more disgruntled end of the spectrum asking why a backup catcher and clubhouse DJ had a roster spot after jinxing the Phillies the year prior with some comments about jumping in the Diamondbacks pool that they absolutely hated. They felt like Marchán was the better player and deserved to stay in the big leagues, while Stubbs should go down. On the other end of the spectrum, you had a portion of the fans who thought it made sense for Marchan's continued development to get playing time in Lehigh Valley. Once Realmuto came back, neither Stubbs nor Marchán was going to see much action on the field anyway, so the thought was that Marchán could finish up his 2024 in AAA and come up in 2025, which is what ended up happening. Stubbs and Marchán both played reasonably well, spelling Realmuto last year, though Marchán had more power and logged 4 extra base hits during that Phillies run. He's 5 years younger than Stubbs, and I think everyone knew he'd claim the backup job at some point. And I think this is pretty well put here, pretty much lays out the entirety of the situation. I will say, as far as the Garrett Stubbs conversation, I do think everyone should let go of those comments that were made about jumping in the pool against the Diamondbacks there. Obviously, that aged incredibly poorly and backfired on the Phillies overall. I do wish Stubbs did not say it in that reference there and kind of, give some bulletin board material. But the bottom line is they did not lose that series because the backup catcher opened their mouth. They lost that series because the bats went cold, and that's sort of the story with this Phillies team. And even when having this conversation here, their season is not going to be made or broken by the backup catcher situation. Now, with that being said, I do think there's a little more than this just being the backup. That in years past, we have acknowledged JT Realmuto as this Iron Man, this guy that is behind the plate on an everyday basis, one of the more durable and productive catchers in the wider scheme of Major League Baseball, but those days may be coming to a close. That there is no arguing he's coming off a down year in which we did have a chance to look at Marchán, and the Phillies are heavily leaning into this game plan of getting him off his feet a little more. The theory by the organization is by limiting the wear and tear in his body behind the plate, behind the plate in the field, more production could come to him at the plate as a hitter. We will see if that plays itself out, but as our guy Luke Arcani points out here, the Phillies aren't going to bring Rafael Marchan up just to play once a week. He needs to catch 2 games a week, get JT off his feet, and have him ready for the summer push into the fall. And that is where JT Realmuto will be his most important to this Phillies team. But that's sort of the conversation that was had, that Kevin just wrote in that first part of the passage here. The Phillies prioritized the development and growth of Marchán last year so he could be ready for this season. But I do believe that if they did not believe there were available opportunities for him, then they probably would have stuck with Garrett Stubbs. Now, the option's a clear indication of why they went this way. It makes far more sense for them to give Marchán a chance. He can earn the opportunity straight up, or if he's not good enough, you have another option there. For the Stubbs hater conversation here, he's fine. He's perfectly fine as a backup catcher. Neither Marchán or Stubbs are going to be guys that blow you away, or I have hopes as a franchise-altering type of player. I do think Marchán is a notch better than Stubbs. The power numbers don't lie, and again, this is not an issue of talent or production from him. It has been injuries that have been the story, so that's the biggest thing to watch out on his end. Can he stay healthy and be ready to contribute every time his name is called? If he's running into injury issues as the backup catcher, that creates even more problems, because then we're back in the same situation where JT Realmuto is forced to be behind the dish on an everyday basis. That is what the Phillies are trying to avoid this year. And to lay out a little bit more in the background of this, it also plays into the contractual obligations here. So to write up or take a peek at this article here, it states, though the Phillies have reportedly considered lowering Realmuto's workload, getting into the first base/DH mix won't be easy with Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber in those positions. That means getting off his feet might require him to be out of the lineup altogether. Per Todd Zalecki of MLB.com, the Phillies have had Realmuto shagging some balls in left field, although both the catcher and manager Rob Thomson characterized those drills were more experimental than any kind of real plan. Zooming out, look at the rest of the roster. There are also arguments for and against an extension. On one hand, the Phils don't have a better solution in the system right now. Rafael Marchan and Garrett Stubbs are also on the roster, but they profile more as depth guys than everyday regulars. Baseball America lists 3 catchers on their list of the club's top 30 prospects: Eduardo Tate, Alfredo Ferreras, and Guillermo Rosario. But none of those 3 have even reached high A level. And I will note, Eduardo Tate there is the guy that they do seem to be grooming in the long haul to be the catcher of the future, but that is several years away at this point. On the financial side of things, they will have to consider a few alternatives. Schwarber and Ranger Suarez are both impending free agents, as well as are Max Kepler, Jordan Romano, and Joe Ross. Matt Strom and Jose Alvarado are entering the final guaranteed years of their respective contracts, though the Phillies have club options on 2 of those. So basically the point being here, from a financial standpoint, this is kind of an evaluation year, that each of these guys are either expiring, coming toward an end of their deal, and this has to be an evaluation of, do you continue with the same core, or is it time to rock the boat and make some changes? For a guy like Rafael Marchan, if you come in here and earn it and play phenomenal in every opportunity you get, it would not shock me if the Phillies turn to him at 26 years old and say, you could potentially be our starting catcher moving forward. Now, I'm not ready to get there yet. We need to see it, but I think it's a good sign that the Phillies are giving him this type of opportunity. And for JT Realmuto, at his age, if you want this extension, if you want to prove you're ready to continue playing high-level baseball, then this is your season to show that on the field. If he can stay healthy and perform, if there is a little bit of a return to those power numbers, or him just really being a more complete hitter at the plate there, that'll be a really encouraging season for JT. And also on the other side of things, I know Ranger Suarez was mentioned in that same paragraph. Do really feel bad from him for the looming contractual obligation conversation there, that he's obviously going to be a free agent at the end of this year. He's been pretty expressive and open about wanting to remain with the Phillies here, but it does not feel like that's as mutual feeling as I would honestly prefer it to be. Now, on the other side of things here, I do think there's a world where that specific situation plays it out where the Phillies can get Ranger Suarez below what his actual market value is. We'll see what this back injury ends up. Obviously, he dealt with that last year as well, and you never want back injuries to be something that lingers with an athlete or with a player for a significant amount of time. And it is concerning that this is starting before even the grind of the season has kicked off for this year. But the bottom line, and what is most important to me, is when Ranger Suarez is on the mound, when he is asked to show up and perform, he gets the job done there. So keep the book open on that. But as I mentioned, kind of the theme of this is it is an evaluation year, that for the time being, the Phillies are going to give Rafael Marchan a real chance to prove he can be the clear-cut backup catcher, and give him a chance to prove and earn that he could potentially be more than that in the future. So there will be some interesting big picture conversations conversations to be had about the future of the catcher position moving forward. But for the time being, it is down to how these guys perform on the field and what these guys look like as a potential standpoint. So we'll see how this season shakes out, but the decision has officially been made as Garrett Stubbs will start the season in the minor leagues. The chief vibes officer himself will bring those vibes right down to the minors, while Rafael Marchan will get a chance to earn his opportunity in the big league. So we will see ultimately if this is the right decision by this Phillies team, how each of these guys look, and talk a little deeper about those looming contract situations moving forward. But for the time being, we're getting close to a final opening roster for opening day there. So let me know what you guys think about this overall decision here. Are you on board with giving Marchán an opportunity? And do you have hope that this guy could be not just the backup catcher for this year, but potentially the catcher of the future beyond JT Realmuto? I'm not quite there yet, but I'm encouraged. I'm going to approach this season open-minded from that standpoint. But as always, do remind you guys to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button before we sign off here. Just 34.1% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to the channel just yet. Let's get this Phillies Digest family growing as large as possible. Opening day is right around the corner, and now is the best time to hop on board. So come join the Phillies Digest family. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Drop a like on this video here. Drop your comments below, and we'll be back talking with you next time. Peace.